Flames fans, it's time for Flames Unfiltered, your spot for Calgary Flames hockey talk. Four wins in the last 5 games. Not pretty wins, but at this point, a win is a win and we'll take it. Good evening and welcome to another edition of Flames Unfiltered, hosted by Burud and Kyle Lewis. And it's a busy week for the Flames. Holy cow, I looked at the schedule this week and it's games galore. And Kyle, we're coming off 3 good games. Lots to talk about this week.
Yeah, lots of positives for a change too. I mean, we're all kind of down in the dumps after the the losing streak we endured, but I think we all expect it to turn around. And it's there's lots going on. And looking forward to talking about it.
It is a lot of you're right, a lot of positives this week, and
minus the fact I have a bit of a man cold, right? So bear with me on that one.
That is not a positive because life sucks when you don't feel good, and it's crazy. We take our health for granted, and I feel so bad for the people that go through that every day of their lives. And when we don't feel good, we try to bear through it and get through work and get through this. And yeah, it's not good, but hopefully you start feeling better here in the next couple of days. And
it's a lot better than yesterday. And like I say, positive Flames news definitely is part of the tonic I need to recover.
A couple wins this weekend would help, wouldn't it?
Big time. Yep. So I see that record starting to get a little bit further away from 500. Hopefully that continues tonight. Yeah.
Afternoon games this weekend. I hate those.
Yeah, they kind of suck the fun out of it for me. Like, it's nice to have an earlier start time, on the East Coast, but it's like, I don't know, because once the games are, it's like, all right, well, now what do I do? That's supposed to be my nightcap, not the middle of my day.
I know, me too. I kind of like ending my day just, sitting back and watching.
You just veg. Yeah. Just take the game in, do your thing, have a beer, whatever.
It's your escape from reality, right?
Exactly.
And then when you're done, you throw in the AirPods and you listen to a little bit of the post game, and I don't know. I look forward to that. And when it's in the afternoon, it's kind of, I don't know. Although the Florida game last week in the afternoon was pretty damn exciting, and we're going to talk about that game in shortly here. And that was a good one. But we're to the time of year where this is where you kind of got to make hay, right? I mean, we're through the early streaks. Lots of teams went on goods and bad streaks, and now after American Thanksgiving, it just you kind of got to start gathering your points and getting your stuff together.
Well, this is where the teams start to separate themselves too. The teams that had the unexpected hot starts kind of fade a bit. The teams like St. Louis that were terrible have recovered, and the teams that are just damn good, like the Bruins, continue to be damn good. And to say nothing of the Devils, like who the hell saw that coming, right?
I did not at all.
I don't think anybody did. I mean, I wouldn't. I could understand them, maybe grabbing a playoff spot or jumping a few spots in the standings. But I mean, there's nobody on the planet that thought they'd be this good. I don't believe anyway.
I don't even think they thought they would be this good.
No, I'm sure you're correct.
There's no way. They've got to be sitting in the locker room going, "Can you believe this is still going?" And we'll see if it continues. Lots of good games on the ledger tonight. And a Flames Penguins game we'll preview on later in the show is going to be starting here real shortly. So let's get on with the show here. And it's a busy week. We're going to recap those 3 games. We're going to roll into some Flames news, and we'll discuss the best news this week, and that's the emergence of Adam Ruzicka. And then we'll go into Jonathan Huberdeau, and he's heating up a little bit. And we'll preview the 4 games as this road trip continues with 3 more to go. And back home to the Saddle Dome for a Matthew Tkachuk reunion on Tuesday night. Sit back, enjoy another episode of Flames Unfiltered. All right, Kyle, let's get the bad news out of the way. Tampa Bay, Calgary on Thursday night, 4-1. Tampa Bay wins it, and this night sucked. This is when lines were still screwy. We had Lucic on the first line with Kadri and Majapani, or I guess you call it the first. I don't even know who cares what line it is, I guess, but he's getting way too much ice time.
Yep.
Starts off with a goal disallowed of his, which is...
I was so disappointed in that. Just nice to get him see that donut get off the board. And
That would have been a good start to the game. I mean,
the season shot, like he really wasn't. He played okay, and then after that, he was just kind of the Lucic of old, and the game got away from him real quickly. I thought.
This game was kind of a weird game. I didn't think we were good in the first. In the second, we pretty much dominated. We outshot them on 17-6, I believe. Yeah. And then Anderson takes a bad penalty and Tampa scores, and it's like we just busted our ass for 20 minutes. For the most part, dominated, and we're behind on the scoreboard. 2-0 at the end of 2, and it's like I don't know. It was disheartening. I just didn't at any point feel like we were coming back in this game, and I know. Lindholm scores and draws within 1, and then 1 minute later, Markstrom lets in probably the worst goal of the year, a muffin from the point. And
I hate that word because it's just such an apt description of that goal.
There's no traffic either.
It was the perfect word to use because it was very condescending, and that goal deserves all the criticism in the world because it was awful.
Yeah.
I think a lack of execution too, as well as they played in the second period. Like, you're going to play like that. Like, you got to get a goal. I don't care who the goalie is. I mean, it was a really frustrating game. I didn't like. I tried to go to bed shortly after. I was too frustrated to sleep. So that's something.
I know. I had that same feeling after the game was over, Kyle. I was just like on edge. It was one of those games, and I don't like to jump into like one game doesn't signify a season, but
we're not Leafs fans here, so
after that game I was starting to question though some of the stuff that's going on, and I was starting to question are we capable of turning this around? I really was. And it was 2 days later, an afternoon game in Florida, and before the game I was not excited. I wasn't. I was actually nervous. I'm like, crap, if we get swept in Florida and this road trip's we'll be off to a horrendous start. And it's crazy. A shootout win in Florida 2 days later just changed everybody's attitude. And it's funny how, last year when I tweeted this, last year when I watched shootout, when the team would get to a shootout, which wasn't very often, I was like, if we win, we win. If we don't, we don't. Well, we were also sitting in first place pretty handily. And I didn't have to worry about it too much. Now this year, every stinking point we get is just it's important, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I thought there was a lot made about that Tkachuk shootout attempt on Markstrom, the big glove save, and I'm like,
what did you think of that?
Well, it was just a really lazy play on Tkachuk's part, and the last time I remember somebody successfully scoring on a slap shot in a shootout was Dion Phaneuf a million years ago. I know others have done it, but that's the only one that I can think of. But I don't know. He didn't really try, it seemed like. And then because it was Tkachuk, it was a big deal. I'm like, no, the bigger deal was Huberdeau's shootout goal and Anderson's beautiful shootout goal. To me, they made a big deal because it was Tkachuk, but to me, it's what a wasted opportunity. Why wouldn't he actually try and take a decent shot or deep
your
or
odds? Yeah, your odds are not good that you're going to score that. And
it's almost like he's doing the Flames a favor, which I know sounds ridiculous. But I'm watching them why would you do that? That, or he just had fucking no clue what to do.
How bad are we pissed at Markstrom if that goes in the top corner?
Probably, yeah. Well, worse because of who it is, but worse than we were about the goal against the Lightning, I think. Oof. Just because it's Tkachuk, right? I mean,
so we get a little off topic here, but how are you feeling about Markstrom?
Not great, not bad, not miserable. Oh no, he's not a starter anymore, and he's washed up, and get rid of him. Not like that, but I'm just he's fine. I'm excited that Vladar's playing tonight because I want to see them be true to their word and play him once a week. So, he was actually quite good. We'll get to that game, the last game he played, and he was quite good in that, I felt. But overall, it's just. Yeah, he's been average,
But, in the Florida game, he had the giveaway behind the net again, and I know those are one-offs, and he's not Mike Smith, and we don't have to watch that all the time.
No, he is not Mike Smith at all.
But it's still frustrating because it's still a goal that we shouldn't be allowing. It seems like we were getting one of those a game up until the Philadelphia game, and I don't know. This Florida game to me was really, really exciting, back and forth, and then Matthew Tkachuk gets a tip in late, and it's that is so classic because you just knew he was going to get one. And
did you watch the bit with him about they interviewed him about playing in Florida, why he wanted to go to Florida, why he wanted to leave Calgary and all that. Did you see that during the game?
I have not, no.
It was like, to me, it was really strange because, I mean, we all knew that he wanted out. We heard different reasons why he wanted out, but it sounded like a guy that's retiring. It showed him like his flip-flops, like his condo in Florida, and it just like, it's the opposite of what you'd expect a competitive young hockey player to want to do. Like the way that it came across, not to say Florida isn't a talented team or couldn't necessarily do things, but it was just a really weird message. It looked like he was in the twilight of his career. Like it didn't connect with me at all. I was like, why is this guy? Why do we want to go there now?
Do you get, and maybe it's just like the persona and the way that family communicates, but do you get the feeling sometimes like the money is more important than a Stanley Cup? Is that fair to say?
It's fair to question, which I think you can do with any pro athlete or any.
Keith didn't win a cup, did he?
No.
Keith did not win a cup, and he was an awesome player.
Oh, he's fantastic. The closest he would have come, I believe, would have been with the Blues in one of those seasons. I remember he played in Atlanta. Didn't get anywhere, of course, with the Coyotes or the Jets. So
he was great. He didn't go anywhere with the Jets, but he was really good there.
Really good, really good with Roenick and Phoenix as well. Those late 90s Coyotes teams are really good. I don't think it's unfair. I think it would be unfair to suggest entirely that that's the case, but I don't think it's unfair to discuss it. I mean, St. Louis is home for him, so that was a possibility for Matthew to go play there. But I mean, the Florida thing, like just everything about it, I'm sure money was a factor, but lifestyle and money maybe seems to be more important than winning a cup. Again, at least that's how it all seems to come out.
It's not like you went to a crappy team either. So for me to even suggest that, it's not.
No, they're a good team. It's not a hockey market. And I realize some guys, people said this about John Gaudreau too, like, that he's probably happier out of the spotlight. And I'm sure there's some truth to that as well. But
I believe that.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, pro athletes get a lot of flack for that. It's like, oh, he's not a winner. He's not a competitor. That's not true at all. It's just, that's the reality of life, right? You have a family and you want to live in a certain spot. I mean, they've earned that right. So
I had an ex-Flame player tell me one time that if you have a good Saturday night, they'll wash your car for you, and if you have a bad Tuesday night, they'll egg your house.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Makes sense. Monday night, Calgary heads into Philly for a matchup where Philly was decimated with injuries, and kind of a game where I felt like we were in control most of the game, or actually all of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
But did you not feel like at points in the third period is like, man, we're kind of letting them off the hook here?
Yeah, and I think that's the mark of a team that's still turning the corner. I mean, a full 60 minutes shouldn't be a big ask of a pro hockey team, but it's looking, it can be, as they're finding their way. So to me, I thought the third was not great, but the game overall I enjoyed. And those empty net goals, I mean, even though they're empty netters, like I really like the conviction to finish the game. The Coleman shot from his own end, and Lewis getting one as well. It was they played it really well for 45, 50 minutes and finished it well. So you can't ask for a whole lot more than that.
Dubé gets off the schneid, gets the second
great
goal.
Shot too.
It was a really good shot. It was. Yeah. I still don't know what I feel like about this though, because I feel like it's. I don't know.
Well, we've had fair criticism of him in the last few weeks, and I'm sure he's probably harder on himself than anybody else is. But I'm really interested to see how he plays tonight, because this is a guy that I still consider a breakout candidate. Slow start doesn't necessarily mean otherwise. So, and again, like, he's got great wheels, he's got a good shot, and we're starting to see more of that. I mean, hopefully the puck starts going the net for him, because he's a guy the Flames could really use to get going.
I'm worried about him, but I'm almost more worried about, like, I think we can survive if Dubé's average, I guess is a term, but if we can't get Andrew Mangiapane going, I think that's a problem.
Well, yeah, it is. I mean, 35 goals last year, right? And yeah, was a fantastic goal scorer. So I don't know what's caused him to crash back down the way that he has. He's been a bit better offensively lately, but
yeah,
I
feel like it's getting close. Do you not feel like it's getting close?
I think it is, and I think the way to get him over that hump, so to speak, is a bit more power play time. Just, kind of, he's on the cusp of snapping of it. I don't think he's going to hit 35 again, but this is a guy who should hit 25 for sure.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and we need him to, right? I mean, the good thing is it didn't go crazy long term on the guy, because I do think this regression is a little concerning, but he's another one to watch big time the next 5 to 10 games to see if he can really turn it around.
Did you not think Vladar would get the start in Philly?
I did, and I don't really know why he didn't. The thing about Dan Vladar is I don't remember a bad game that he's played. I can think of times where he allowed bad goals that I don't recall the exact goal, but I know it's happened. But he generally plays quite well every game. So I'm thinking maybe because they're trying to get Markstrom in a groove, they figure it'd be better to have Markstrom play the weak opponent because Vladar as a backup is very consistent. So maybe that's, they basically fed the Flyers to Markstrom, thinking, you know what, we got to get him in a bit of a groove here. So maybe that was the thinking behind it. That makes sense. That actually does make sense. And that's just my theory. I mean, God knows, but there's no danger in starting Vladar against the Penguins. I mean, he's always been consistent. So, I really, looking back on it, like that Monday night game, I really enjoyed it. And one of the things that I enjoyed the most was the Huberdeau goal. And Kelly Rudy, and I said this to you in a text today, Kelly Rudy nailed it. He said, like, that's a confident shot or goal, whatever he called it. And it was. Like, that's a guy that just knew exactly where he's putting the puck. He knew he had all the time and space. And it's like, skilled forwards in the NHL are going to score that goal 9 times out of 10. And
he's had a different, yeah.
He's coming back from injury, yeah. He looks like a force out there.
Let's talk about Jonathan Huber now and how he has heated up. And since he went to Florida, he just looks different. And you're right, that shot was definitely a confident shot. If you look at his statistics, he's currently sitting with 9 points in 15 games. And if you think about that, that's not horrible pace. I mean, it's not where we want him to be, but that's not horrible. It's not like he hasn't scored in 6 or something like that. And, you look at the time on ice, he's up to that 19-minute mark now. He's on a line, an interesting line with Backlund and Coleman right now. And it's been fine. I mean, a lot of people are like, well, why isn't Jonathan Huberdeau on the first line? Well, I don't know. Tell me what the first line of the Calgary Flames is right now.
Well, and to your point, that's exactly it. They don't have a first line. If you look at the ice time across the 4 lines, it is incredibly even. And the thing is too, like Huberdeau has really benefited from the Backlund bump that every player who's come through Calgary typically gets. He makes people around him quite a lot better. Expected goals for Huberdeau was up like, I don't know, 10% or something from being on Backlund's line. So there's no reason that line won't work. Backlund does have some skill. Coleman has great wheels. And I always felt that Coleman was a little bit underused offensively. I think he can give a little bit more, but I love that line so far. And I think it's one we could see stick together.
I don't mind it at all either. And I sit and I watch, and they're doing good things. They actually, in the Philly game, got most of the key face-offs and key moments of the game. They were put out there for that. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like a whole different attitude for Huberdeau. And you start to think about it. Think about this. He comes from Florida, where he's, I guess, a star in the league. Probably would have been a superstar in the league had he not been in Florida.
Yeah.
And so he comes to Calgary, to a Canadian hockey market where the media is 100 times more, prevalent than they are going to be in Florida. And he's making, he gets the big dollar contract. There's got to be a lot of pressure with that. There's a lot of pressure that goes along with that.
Yeah. And I think too, like I said this on the prior Eastern road swing, that would have been what got him going. And it may have had he not got hurt. I think, again, playing in familiar rinks really helped him kind of turn the corner. But I think it's strange too when a guy signs a long-term deal in a city he's never played. He hadn't played a game for the Flames, and it's like, we are married to this dude now, so wish us luck. And it's like, you guys, you haven't even dated yet. Like, what the hell are you thinking, right?
No, it is. It's like, what's that stupid show on Netflix, Love is Blind? It's like that.
Yeah, it's so that, to me, I mean, and I didn't mind it because I thought the first thing that the team needed to do was to sign a marquee name to replace the marquee name they lost, in Gaudreau especially. So,
another reason that I didn't mind it is if you look at his career stats, they've been fairly consistent.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I mentioned before, a buddy of mine that works in the league, like that was with Huberdeau, part of his junior career, said like people don't realize how good he is, and I think that's. And partly, like you said, because he played in Florida, but like he's a phenomenal hockey player. So this is only a matter of time. Now we're not I don't think going to see 115 points, but if he's a better 200-foot player playing under Daryl Sutter and he nets 70 to 80, I mean, is anybody really going to complain about that? Because for what he's making, that's pretty much what you'd expect, not maybe a little more.
If he scores, or if he has 85 points and learns to play a solid two-way game, shoot, I think it's a huge win, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said before, he's one of the best players along the boards in the league. Like the way he comes away with the puck and the plays he can make, like it's really impressive. Like he's a super valuable asset. So whether he plays with Backlund or Kadri or whoever, I don't think it really matters. Like he's going to play well wherever he is, and he makes, much like Backlund, will make guys around him better.
And you look at, I always think, and I don't care if you're working or you're playing hockey or you're playing baseball or you're doing whatever, when you're having fun, things come easier, and usually you play better and things go your way. And I don't think there's a long stretch that I don't think the Flames were having all that much fun at the rink. And I think this road trip has, if anything, brought out some fun. And I think Florida, going home for those guys to Florida, brought out some fun in the game and probably lightened the mood of the whole team. And it's easier to win when you're having fun.
Yeah, and I think that's what road trips are so great, great for, is it gets you to spend more time together. Like you're at the hotel bar, the restaurants. Not that it's not great to go home to your family, of course. I mean, that's anybody's preference. But it's just a kind of a galvanizing experience, and to do it in a familiar place like Florida for them, because I thought Weegar was quite good against Florida as well, and his game is starting to come around, especially offensively.
I like his game, and you know what? I don't know if you heard, Flames TV put out where they had those two guys mic'd for the game in Florida, and listening to some of the conversations they had during the game and how they were feeling back in Florida and stuff. It was neat to listen to, and I don't know. I think it's good to get that under their belt, and I think we're going to see continued success for both those two guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they're both great players, and it was kind of, it's a package deal. Like people forget how big part of a deal that the Weegar was when he was acquired too. So I think this is a matter of time for both those guys, and now, like you said earlier about getting the meat of the season and when you make hay, like this is where we're going to see what the Flames are actually made of, and if they're anything like the team we saw last year in terms of their success.
Another guy that's kind of stepped into the lineup that I wanted to talk about is Dennis Gilbert. And
yeah. What did James Johnson tweeted about him the other day and said something like NHL leader in like useless fights per 60 minutes.
Well, he is. How many has he had? He's had
3, I think.
3, I think. Yeah.
It's 3. And like, I'm not one of those. I was actually hoping we talked about this. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm not like opposed to fighting. I think it's a bit needless at times, and I think the biggest need, unless that's your clearly defined role, which is less and less the case, like for Dennis Gilbert, it's like he has to make an impression. Like he has made the case to be this team's 7th defenseman after he was 9th on the depth chart, right? So fighting's kind of allowed him to do that. Plus the fact he's just played generally well, very under the radar. But man, he can throw him. Like he has, no issue going out there and doing his business. So good for him.
I hate stage fights. I love fights like, I'll use the Chuck Cassian last year, 2 years or whatever, 3 years ago, or however long ago.
It feels like 20.
I know. Like when you're in a heat of a battle in front of the net and just all hell breaks loose and a fight goes down, like I'm for those. I don't necessarily like two guys at a face-off circle dropping the gloves, but
and respectful fighting too. Like I hate when guys throw a punch when somebody's fallen to the ice or try to hit them when they're already down. Like that to me is just deplorable, and that's where a lot of the CTE stuff I think is because especially dangerous. Is like and not that fighting isn't reckless at all, because it is, but that to me is just so much worse. But I think he's picked his spots well. Like, and I didn't know much about Dennis Gilbert.
I didn't either.
I don't think any of us did, really. I mean, especially after the big guys were acquired in the summer, nobody's talking about any of those guys or Kevin Rooney at all anymore, right? But he's done really well.
I'm interested to see if Stone comes into the lineup tonight, because he has been practicing with the team and stuff. So we may see him into the lineup, and I haven't seen.
I get the sense he's probably a game time decision. Actually, if we check Twitter right now, I'd probably know, but I don't think he's going to play based on everything I read. But
but Gilbert went from 9 minutes up to 11, up to 13, and I did not that's a hell of a good sign with Daryl Sutter as head coach, because he sure as hell does not put anybody out there he does not trust. And I think, I think it's coming along now where he's starting to trust him just a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And that's a real good sign.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And I think for a team that, we didn't expect to not have Shillington for however long that's going to be. And it's already been, quite a while, 16, 17 games, however long the season's been.
I am mentally planning that we do not see Shillington this year. And if we do see him, it's a bonus.
Yeah, I think that's how you have to approach it, especially not knowing the nature of the issue. And I mean, and his name's going to come up, on our show from time to time, as it should. Yeah. He's a great hockey player. But the team is turning a corner seemingly, and they have some depth. And Michael Stone has kind of resurrected his career, and Dennis Gilbert's better than we thought. Connor Mackey has some work to do, like we discussed, but I mean, that's by no means a lost cause. I like the Flames defense, and I like the fact that guys are starting to kind of carve out their roles and where they fit on this roster.
So what did you think? Daryl Sutter had really, really high praise for Nikita Zadorov, and I have the quote here in front of me. He went on to say he's been our best player in the physical part of the game and the execution part of the game. He's been our best defenseman, clearly. Were you surprised by that comment, or do you agree with that comment that Daryl Sutter had?
I agree with some of it. He's definitely been their best player physically. Like some of the checks he's throwing are unreal, which he's apt to do. I mean, he's a huge dude. Apart from that, I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's been their best defenseman, but I see where it comes from because Tanev missed some time and Weegar still adjusting. Hannafin and Anderson, I would probably say, but I think Anderson, especially lately, has been really, really good. But I think the caveat in all this, or what you've got to look at, is the circumstances. So Zadorov is pressed into more minutes. Objectively, I don't think he's been their best player, but under the circumstances, you could make the case that he's carried the mail far more than anybody expected him to.
He's
put up a few points too.
Way out of his element. I mean, if we would have rewind back to not this preseason, but the preseason before, when he was atrocious, and we did not think that he'd be doing what he's doing right now. So all that's good, and I've been impressed with his play thus far. Another player that I've been impressed with is Richie, and he's out of the lineup now with an injury. And
he skated this morning, but yeah, he's still out.
Yeah, it sounds like he's dealing with a couple minor things. So I guess that's good. So that it's short term, but I'm assuming Rooney will draw on tonight. And
and actually, have you found yourself I thought Rooney was a lot better the other night in Philly. Like he didn't stand out for any of the wrong reasons this time around. Like he skated well. What were your thoughts on his play? Because we might be seeing him for a while.
I have no idea what to think, because at the beginning of the year, I thought I liked what I was seeing. He was doing what a fourth line center should do, and I liked it, and I liked it, and I liked it. And then he had a 3 or 4 game stretch where it was just like, I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And he just
he really fell off a cliff. This wasn't a guy who just kind of flew into the radar, who typically doesn't. He really played very poorly by the eye test, by the metrics test. Like any way you slice it, he played poorly. So hopefully Monday's game is a sign of him kind of turning a corner as well.
I hope so, because you know what, I think he's a critical part of this team. I think
first free agent signing after Johnny Gaudreau left. I mean, yeah.
How bad was that day?
Oh, it was.
They
could have signed just about anybody that had less than 50 points, and it was going to get crucified. So I felt bad for
literally everybody that's a Flames fan instantly typed in Kevin Rooney into Hockey DB.
Yeah,
like every single person did, and it was just like, oh god.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of bright spots, Adam Ruzicka, holy cow! Like,
now tell me that this wasn't the one thing you were looking most forward to discussing tonight, right?
For sure, it was it was number one thing on my list that I wanted to talk about, because I'm not going to say it yet. I'm not going to say that I'm a full believer yet. I believe that his knock has been consistency, and we saw a little bit of that, as I didn't think he was real good in Philly the other night, but tonight's a very, very, very important game for him.
And he's playing against childhood hero and Evgeny Malkin. So
I heard that. I heard that today.
Yeah. So for my part in all this, and I mentioned this to you the other day too, I guess, I had to do a lot of research on Adam Ruzicka because I didn't know a lot about him. I knew he was a 4th-round pick. I knew he was big. I knew he played in Sarnia and put up some pretty decent point totals in the latter part of his career there. But I read a lot of scouting reports, and I shared one with you where it's, he was basically had all the tools, but was just lazy.
Yeah, well, that's what it basically said.
Yeah, and there was a lot of reports like that. A lot of reports about how he skates well for his size, but isn't particularly quick. Has a really good shot. But I mean, if the knock against him was laziness or inconsistency, I mean, there's no better coach for him than Daryl Sutter.
He's got 4 goals, 4 assists, 8 points in 8 games. He was a healthy scratch for 5 games, I believe, and then draws into the lineup on the left-hand side of Lindholm and Toffoli. And all of a sudden, a line that when we first saw it, we thought, "Oh, that's junk." We did. Every one of us did. And then now I'm sitting here looking at the line, going, "I like it. It's producing. It's kind of like the Backlund, Huberdeau, Coleman. It's like not how I would script it, but it's working."
Well, and it goes against some of the criticisms that I had about not giving younger players opportunities on this team. And I think with Ruzicka in particular, like, everything that he's done so far it looks sustainable. It looks like he's shooting well, he's skating well, he's engaged in the play. So I don't think this is just a matter of a guy getting an opportunity and going to pop a few points just solely based on. I think it's a guy that actually deserves to play in a role like that and is showing that he can do it. I mean, he's got all the tools to be a really successful power forward. I mean, we could see him topping out as a 60-point winger, maybe someday center in the league. And for a guy that's a 4th-round pick that a lot of teams passed on and was once considered, 1st-round caliber, you can't ask for more than that.
He's only played 39 NHL games.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that crazy?
And this year he's not a minus player. He's even. So that's
which is good for a team that's only 9-7, right? That's not bad at all.
No, yeah, and that's really I think what has a better chance of getting him out of the lineup is being a defensive liability and not playing with that strong intensity. But I mean, if this guy keeps going like he's going, he's exactly what we were looking for, right?
Yeah, well, we keep talking about the need for a top 6 winger. I mean, maybe we have one. And I don't think anybody, and I challenge anybody to try and tell me they believed otherwise, but I don't think anybody really would have seen that coming. This is a guy, again, who was pretty far down the depth chart, showed well last year, but certainly didn't blow the doors off or anything.
He had moments last year where it was like, oh boy. And then, but unfortunately, you'd go 8 games after that where it was like, oh, geez.
Well, and again, that's been the knock against his whole career. So now he's at that turning point. It's like, okay, do you want to be a career tweener? You're obviously a pro hockey player, whether it's here in Europe, the American League, whatever. But do you want to be an everyday NHL player? And I remember, years ago, Grant Fuhrer telling Jerome McGinley, shoot more, stop trying to be so fancy. The goals started coming, right? And then when he had his 52-goal season in 2002, and he wound up playing in Salt Lake, the Olympics, he was quoted as saying, "I decided I wanted to be a star in this league." And not to draw any comparison between a guy like Adam Ruzicka and a legend like Jerome McGinley, but I think that thinking is where Ruzicka's got to be now. And probably the coaching staff has said, like, hey, do you want to be an everyday player? Do you want to be a difference maker? Do you want to put up points in this league and be a part of a winning culture? And I feel like somebody challenged him to do that with the opportunity he's been given. And so far, he looks great. Yeah.
Oh, it's fun to watch. And he's exactly what I want. I want a big guy. He's 6'4", big body winger. And he handles the puck well along the wall, I think. And if we can keep him going, and one of the things I think that's been critical in giving him a chance for success is I think it's hard when you get a young player and you give him a chance on the 4th line. I think you've got to bring in a guy and give him a chance where he can succeed.
Well, this is why we keep talking about guys like Matthew Phillips, if they do get a chance. Like, he in particular is the kind of guy that will need a chance on a scoring line. And I don't know. I mean, for anybody who's ever played hockey, like, you feel a lot of pride if you block a shot or have a good stick or take someone to play with a nice hit. But you never feel like you've contributed more than when you score a big goal or make a nice play. And that's my personal feeling. So to put him in an offensive role to build that confidence, I think that's conducive to him doing better in a defensive role, much to what you said earlier about, that might be one of the drawbacks. It's not quite so strong defensively, but that'll come with time. But you got to give somebody like that opportunity and a chance to build his confidence, and an offensive role is the best way to do it.
When you look at these lines now, I mean, they're not how like I would draw them up, or I don't think they're how you would draw them up either. Where do you see it going? Where do you see the lines going? I mean, I think right now probably where all the focus is on, for me at least, is all right. We've seen Huberdeau getting better. Backlund's Backlund. Coleman's Coleman. Fourth line, I'm totally fine with. Just be your fourth line. And Lindholm, I'm good with. Ruzicka, I'm pleasantly surprised with. Toffoli, actually pleasantly surprised with this year. But it's the line of Kadri, Mangiapane, and Dubé that I look at and I'm like, man, does that line have so much potential?
Yeah.
So far has been so underwhelming.
Well, I think that's what makes Backlund your Swiss Army knife, though, is that if they have to get somebody going, they're going to put him with Backlund, and that could be Dubé, it could be Mangiapane, it could be both of them, really. I'm with you. I don't think anybody would drawn up the lines the way that they are. The only thing I haven't seen yet that I'm really curious to see would be Huberdeau with like Kadri and Mangiapane, right? And that may come too. But the lines
see that sooner than later.
Yeah, right now the lines seem to be working, but when you have your offense spread out across so many lines and some guys like Mangiapane are underachieving, inevitably there's going to be a game where you're going to get shut out, or you're going to lose 2 games by like a score of 2-1 or 4-1, and then the line changes come to try and get your big guns going. You know, and that's kind of what happened when they settled on the Gaudreau, Lindholm, Tkachuk line. So at some point in the season, they're going to have to go top heavy, but for now, this is working. And I think, again, with guys like Backlund and Kadri too, because he's a very good two-way center, it gives you so many more options to get guys out of slumps, to help players be better defensively by playing alongside those defensive studs. So that was the big thing, all summer with the Flames, is they're going to have lots of options based on the personnel they have, and so far we're seeing it.
We've seen everything, haven't we?
Yeah, for not being too far in the season, I agree with that.
I look at a guy like Kadri, and he's kind of cooled off lately.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah, it's a good point. He really has.
I for some reason feel like Kadri and Mangiapane are due for a big breakout. I think both of them are probably are more than capable of it. Dubé, and I'm not trying to be negative on him. I hope that, God, if he could prove me wrong, we could take another step. I just feel like we're just, every player is going to go through some cold streaks, but man, Mangiapane and Dubé have been on a cold streak for a long time now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, again, that goal the other night for Dubé was really important. Those two guys, like, I don't know, like their offensive importance is so elevated, in the last year after Mangiapane showed what he could do, and Dubé had a really, really solid second half. So with the guys that left town, like, there's a lot more pressure on those two to perform offensively, and I just don't think they've risen to the occasion yet. So I'm really curious to see, who puts points up on the board for the Flames tonight, because I think the last game was a pretty good indication that things are starting to change. And Mangiapane's got a couple points recently too, but yeah. Those are two guys that definitely need more out of.
Mangiapane is like one of those guys that kind of scores in spurts, and Dylan Dubé is actually, if you look back at his stats. And
yep.
If we could get the one of those two right now to get on a little bit of a scoring spurt, it changes the perspective of everything.
Yeah, big time.
Back to preview the 4 games we have this weekend. Get all your Flames Unfiltered podcasts, team news, team updates, and highlights at flamesunfiltered.com. Back to preview the games ahead Wednesday. And right now, actually, puck's going to be dropping here any second in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's currently 5th in the Metro. Winners of their last 3. Vladar gets the start tonight. This is the second meeting between the two this year in late October. The Flames beat the Penguins 4-1. I believe it's Tristan Jarry against Dan Vladar tonight, and that should be
correct.
A good match.
Should be. It's very, very similar records. The Penguins have been playing a little bit better lately too, and they're one of those teams that's still like very relevant because of the high end talent they have, even though they have kind of an aging core. But it's a team I think you've always got to get up for. I mean, they're still quite strong. If they're a team that, if they sneak into like a wild card spot, I wouldn't want to play them. So obviously Calgary wouldn't have to worry about it, but in the East, they'd be a team I'd want to avoid.
Friday and Saturday day games, Calgary in Washington on Black Friday to take on the Washington Capitals, who are the second most injured team in the league. We saw the first in Philly on Thursday. No, what day is it today? That was on Monday night. Holy cow, I got my days all mixed up with holiday weeks and everything going on. But this will be the first of two meetings between the Flames and the Capitals. And then on Saturday, the Calgary heads into Carolina for the second of two meetings as Calgary beat Carolina in late October, 3-2 in overtime. Carolina currently second in the Metro and a really, really good hockey team. One that I've seen a lot of people have projected to go to the Stanley Cup Finals. So it'll be fun to go in and watch that game. And then Tuesday night, it's the return of Matthew Tkachuk to the Saddle Dome. And the first game back after 6 on the road for the Flames, their longest trip of the year. And that'll be a really, really interesting meeting against the Florida Panthers team that was probably one of the most exciting games of the year we saw last Saturday. So Matthew Tkachuk coming back to Calgary, how big of a deal is that going to be?
I think it's huge because alongside Gaudreau and Monahan, there's no players that define. I guess Mark Giordano can make that, but no players that define the last 5 to 10 years of the Flames as much as those guys did. Tkachuk a little less, so he wasn't there quite as long, but I mean, put up some really, really strong seasons and very memorable moments. Dragged his team into the fight a bunch. Didn't always do things that were conducive to the team's success, a bit immature at times. We still see some of that with his play in Florida, but he's having a fantastic year. I think it's a pretty big deal, because, I mean, when guys like that leave town, it'll be, I think, even bigger deal when John Gaudreau's back. It's a changing the guard, right? I think Monahan coming back is going to be a bit of a bigger deal, too. But I think it kind of makes sense that the Tkachuk one is the first one to come up. What are your thoughts on it? Do you see that as being a big deal? Do you think it gets booed? Like, how do you see that going?
Yeah, I'm gonna make my predictions right now. I think he gets booed. I don't think it's like relentless booing, but I do think he gets booed.
Yeah,
I think Johnny Gaudreau will get relentlessly booed, and I think that Sean Monahan will get a standing ovation.
I think that's true, mostly because Tkachuk and Gaudreau both chose to leave, which in any sport, when LeBron left Cleveland the first time, burning jerseys in the streets kind of thing, right?
I mean, I don't think it's going to be like I look at the fan base in Calgary and I think,
there's people that are still really upset about it. I mean, I don't think it's going to be like this, vitriol, hate-filled event by any stretch. But I think that's what you're getting at.
I don't think it's going to be that. I don't think it's going to be that John Tavares goes back to the island. I don't. But I still
laugh at that one. That press release for Lou Lamoriello said that John Tavares had tremendous individual success during his time on Long Island. What a shot! But that's the difference, though. I mean, people who want to boo Tkachuk, I get it. I mean, he wanted out. But that being said, he was a huge part in orchestrating the trade to get the return that they got. He worked with Flames management to make it. That was a really respectful move. That I think it
totally was, and I don't know that he should get booed. I don't know that he should get a standing ovation either. I don't know.
I don't know. John Gaudreau's case.
That's going to be an interesting one.
That's going to be interesting, and I think it's going to be interesting because he negotiated with the team up until the 11th hour, and I criticized his decision based on what I thought he knew at the time, and hindsight being what it is, a few conversations later, all that kind of stuff. It's like I still wish he was there. He's one of the best Flames to ever wear the jersey. But if people want to boo him, then I think it's a bit of a disservice because he gave them some of the most iconic moments for a team that doesn't have a lot of playoff success. His overtime goal against the Ducks in round 2 in 2015, the goal against Dallas, which I still routinely watch.
I think the more is no fan base wants players that are good to leave.
No, absolutely not. And that's part of sports. They're going to get booed, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's the same as if you watch pro wrestling and you boo the bad guys, you cheer the good guys. That's just part of enjoying sports and sports entertainment. It just is what it is.
Quite honestly, he would have got booed if he would have at the beginning or at the end of the season said, I'm not signing here, but I'm telling you that up front, he still would get booed. I do think he's going to get booed a little bit more just because I think the fan base felt led on.
Yeah, and I can see some of the reasons why they did, but I mean, I guess the flip side of that is like we don't know how those negotiations. What did the team push back on that maybe he didn't feel was unreasonable, right? So we're always defensive of our team because the team is an entity. Johnny Gaudreau is a player, right? Yep. So it's easy to look at the individual and question them. Well, this entity, which includes Brad Treliving and his scouting staff and Don Maloney and everybody else, it's like, okay, well, what did they do to not make this work? Because you can't tell me that, that they didn't. I'm not saying it should have gone one way or the other. I'm just saying like there's a reason these things didn't work out.
And the fact of the matter is, Treliving, from what has been reported, offered him an amazing contract, and I would not have wanted him to offer more than that.
Well, you don't want to pay any player more than that, really. If
he chose to walk on that contract, then I guess it's a win-win for both, right?
Yeah, I mean, he got a huge contract where he went. He's closer to home where he wanted to be. He's got a young family. I mean, and we got some great players. Now, the thing I missed the most about him, and I feel like we kind of went on this tangent here because we are going to talk about it more, obviously, when that date comes. And the game in Columbus is in maybe 2 weeks.
I think
yeah, and the thing is like, I miss him a lot because there's nobody on the Flames team that can make plays like John Gaudreau could. Nobody's going to give you that many wow moments, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's the kind of stuff you miss. But I mean, for all those guys, and then just to talk briefly again about Monahan, like there's no way that shouldn't be a standing O. The team kind of gave up on him or felt they had to move on, which I had mixed feelings about. And it's really, really cool to see him have success in Montreal.
It is. I'm cheering for him.
Every Flames fan is. How could you not? I mean, the guy went through hell. He had to sit out, the really fun postseason run. Put up a ton of points with the Flames. Like I don't know what more you want from him, right?
Yeah. No, it'll be fun, and it's going to be fun having Matthew Tkachuk back in the house. Is anytime you have that, it's.
But that's a great way to come off a road trip too, and I want to point that out. I really believe that after going to Eastern Swing and playing these games and spending time in this hotel, you go back to Calgary, things are a little bit more normal. You're back home, like, oh shit, this is Matthew Tkachuk, like Matt's back tonight, right? Like, they got to get up for that.
Is this Sam Bennett's first return?
No, I don't think so. No, he would have played a game there last year.
Yeah,
I had such high hopes for him.
Jeez, we don't need to talk about that, do we?
I had a 93 Bennett jersey. I had a 63 Bennett rookie T-shirt that I bought when I was in Calgary for those playoffs. Like, I love the way he plays. Just, but it was like Valimaki. He wasn't gonna pan out in Calgary, and we just had to accept it, right?
We did, and I love the way he played. But yeah, cool. Busy week, Flames fans. 4 games lie ahead in the next couple days, and it is going to be balls to the wall now. And now is when we need to make some hay. Next week we're back. Kyle and I are back talking Flames hockey. We're going to go over. It's always kind of been noted as a playoff marker number 1, the American Thanksgiving, and to see where you're at in the standings. And we're going to screenshot the standings tomorrow morning, and Kyle and I will talk about that next week and how. What teams are going to stay in the hunt and what teams will fall out, and how Calgary sits in that whole mix. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the games. Get on over and watch Pittsburgh Calgary now, right, Kyle?
Can't wait. Gonna head to watch it right now and cross your fingers and toes.
That's right. Have a good week, Flames fans, and we're back talking Flames hockey next week.
All right, take care, folks.
Get connected. Flames Unfiltered can be found on Twitter at Flame Unfiltered. Check out the Facebook page at Flames Unfiltered. Host Brad Burud is on Twitter at Brad Burud, and host Kyle Lewis is on Twitter at VanLewis14. Like what you hear? Rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Flames Unfiltered can be found on all the major podcast players. Want to watch the show? You got it. Check out Inside Edge Hockey Media Group for every show. Subscribe while you watch. Thanks for listening, watching, and interacting. Enjoy the hockey action.
We call them playoff! Yeah, baby! Playoff! Yeah, baby!
Thanks for tuning in to Flames Unfiltered. Check back for more action-packed Calgary Flames talk. This episode of Flames Unfiltered was copyrighted and produced by Inside Edge Hockey Media Group.